reading from Buffalo Rising on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From Page Story, A Welcome Home, Santicieros is back, and Buffalo is better for it. There are restaurants you enjoy, and then there are restaurants that quietly become part of your life. Santicieros has always been one of those places for me. For nearly 20 years, I worked just a few minutes away, and it wasn't unusual to stop in for lunch a couple of times a month or swing by after work for takeout. Like many Buffalonians, I found my favorites early and never really felt the need to branch out. When Santicieros closed after the passing of fourth-generation owner John Brands, Jr., it honestly felt like Buffalo had lost a little piece of itself. When I learned that Jennifer Hurley, Mark Longo, and David Capretto had stepped in to purchase the restaurant, I was genuinely excited. Saving a restaurant with more than a century of history is not something you do because it's easy. You do it because you understand what that place means to a city. Jennifer happens to be a friend, so I was thrilled for her, but I was also curious. Could they really preserve what generations of Buffalonians had come to love? About a month ago, a friend and I decided we'd find out. We arrived what we thought was early for dinner, only to discover we weren't nearly early enough. The place was packed. Rather than wait, we decided we'd come back another day. But honestly, I left smiling. Seeing that many people waiting to get back into Santicieros was a pretty good sign that Buffalo clearly had not forgotten about this place. This past Sunday, I was not making the same mistake twice. I pulled into the parking lot about 30 minutes before the door opened at 4 p.m., figuring I'd relax for a few minutes before heading inside. I'm glad I did. It didn't take long for people to start arriving, and by 5 o'clock, the dining room was buzzing. Every table appeared to be filled. Servers were moving effortlessly from table to table. Conversations filled the room, and there was simply a great energy in the building. It didn't feel like people were just out for dinner. It felt like people were genuinely happy to have Santicieros back. Walking through the front door brought back a lot of memories. One of the first things that caught my attention was the hallway lined with old family photographs. It immediately reminded me that this is not just another neighborhood restaurant. It's part of Buffalo's history. The familiar red and white checkered tablecloths are still there. The original Santicieros sign has been preserved, and the renovations somehow managed to make everything feel brighter without taking away the character that people have loved for generations. The new outdoor patio is a wonderful addition too. It feels like the restaurant has been carefully refreshed instead of reinvented, and I think that's exactly what longtime customers were hoping for. Jennifer and her partners deserve a tremendous amount of credit. They could have tried to put their own stamp on everything. Instead, they chose to protect what made Santicieros special in the first place. They kept the original recipes, retained the restaurant's personality, and brought back family ties through General Manager Trish Brydalski. If I had to guess what Jennifer's philosophy has been throughout this entire process, it would probably sound something like this. We never wanted people to walk in and think that this was a new restaurant. We wanted them to walk in, smile, and feel like they had been here before and they had come home. After spending the evening there, I'd say they accomplished exactly that. Now let's talk about the food. I rarely critique food because I'm not a chef, and I certainly don't consider myself a restaurant critic. I usually write about the people, the atmosphere, and the experience, because that's what stays with me. Having said that, I'm also half Italian. I love a really good red sauce, and eggplant parmesan has always been one of my favorite dishes. I wasn't about to experiment on this visit. I ordered exactly what I've ordered for years: the hot peppers, meatballs, and eggplant parm. If those three dishes held up, I'd know that they had gotten it right. They absolutely got it right. Actually, they exceeded my expectations. The peppers tasted exactly as I remembered. The meatballs were outstanding, and the eggplant parm was everything I had hoped it would be. The red sauce was rich, balanced, comforting, and honestly some of the best I've had anywhere. I purposely ordered enough to bring half of it home because, quite frankly, my refrigerator currently contains little more than a lonely can of root beer. I wanted lunch the next day, and I was not disappointed. As I looked around the dining room, I couldn't help but notice bowl after bowl of Santicieros' famous pasta fazola heading out to tables. I've heard people talk about it for years, and judging by how many orders were leaving the kitchen, it's easy to understand why it's become one of the restaurant's signature dishes. Maybe next time I'll finally break my habit and give it a try. Then again, after this meal, I might have a hard time walking away from the eggplant parmesan. The service deserves recognition too. Andrew, the bartender, had only been there a couple of weeks, but you never would have known it. He was calm, welcoming, attentive, and had the kind of personality that immediately makes people feel comfortable. As busy as the restaurant became, nobody looked rattled. The servers were smiling, checking on guests, helping one another, and keeping everything moving. That's usually a reflection of good leadership, and Jennifer and her team should be proud of the atmosphere they've created. One thing I've learned over the years is that restaurants aren't just about food. They're about memories. That's where birthdays are celebrated, families gather after funerals, first dates happen, and old friends catch up over dinner. The best restaurants become woven into the fabric of a city, and Santicieros has been doing that exactly since 1921. Reopening a place with that kind of history comes with enormous expectations, because everyone remembers how it used to be. Trying to live up to generations of memories can't be easy, which is probably why so few people are willing to take on that challenge. Walking back to my car, I realized something. I hadn't spent the evening comparing the old Santicieros to the new Santicieros. Somewhere between the hot peppers, the meatballs, the eggplant parm, and looking at all those family photographs on the wall, I simply found myself enjoying dinner. That's probably the biggest compliment I can give. The owners have managed to preserve something that means a great deal to Buffalo, while thoughtfully preparing it for the future. They kept the original spirit of the restaurant, respected the recipes that generations have come to love, and somehow made everything feel both familiar and refreshed. That's a difficult balance to achieve, and in my opinion, they got it right. Congratulations to Jennifer Hurley, Mark Longo, David Capretto, Trish Bradowski, Andrew, and everyone else who has poured their heart into bringing Santicieros back. Buffalo has watched too many longtime institutions disappear over the years. Thankfully, this isn't one of those stories. This one has a happy ending. If you're planning to visit, here's one piece of advice. Get there early. I learned that lesson the hard way the first time, and judging by what I experienced Sunday evening, word is definitely out. Oh, and one final observation. They're serving Coca-Cola products now. As a lifelong Pepsi guy, I wasn't thrilled. Fortunately, the eggplant parmesan was so good that I somehow managed to survive. Santicieros restaurant is located at 1329 Niagara Street in Buffalo. The phone number is 716-886-9197. Their hours are Sunday from 4 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., closed on Monday, Tuesday through Saturday, 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., and 4:30 to 8:30 p.m., and they are closed daily from 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Takeout is available Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday during business hours. Reservations are accepted for parties of 8 or more. Here's a story titled, Jeremy James O'Brien Wanted You to Know That You Matter. I never met Jeremy James O'Brien, who made this sign. And the story is accompanied by a photograph of a sign on a street sign that says, "You matter. Thank you. You are loved." It's a handmade sign. I never met Jeremy James O'Brien, who made this sign, and I wouldn't have known him if it wasn't for a recent conjunction of circumstances so unlikely as to be almost uncanny, yet at the same time entirely characteristic of the Buffalo area, where no one is really more than 1 or 2 degrees of separation from anyone else. Before I get into that, because I want this to be more about Jeremy and his message than me, see this lovely tribute page and what is written there about him by people who did know him. It says, Jeremy J. O'Brien, born July 9th, 1974, raised in Depew, New York, passed in his home in June of 2026. Jeremy was the deeply loved son of Joanne Wilkovich and Joseph O'Brien, proud protector of his sisters, Julie and Jennifer, joke-filled uncle to Mason, Zoe, and Matthew, as well as a selfless friend, mentor, and confidant to an innumerable many. Jeremy was a mindful community member, a colorful creative artist, a wordsmithing poet, a snowboarding instructor, a masterful skateboarder into his 50s, an effervescent philosopher, teacher, and spontaneous traveler who inspired many. Jeremy's family would love to host all who knew him for a celebration of his life on August 8, 2026, in Depew's Fireman Park from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Below is one of Jeremy's most poignant quotes. Too much cleansing washes too clean. If we wash ourselves to purity, we become very susceptible to soil. My connection here began the day I saw Jeremy's sign, June 11th. It was day 3 of the Big Boy Steam Engine's visit to Buffalo, and I needed to head to Depew with the Buffalo Rising camera to capture its departure on Norfolk Southern's Southern Tier line. But things came up that morning, and by the time I was ready to head out, I only had 45 minutes to get from the west side to Depew by bike. That ain't happening, I thought. So instead of wasting 2 hours of my day missing a train, maybe I should stay home and get some other work done. But in the end, I decided to give it a shot. And after using up one of my cyclist 9 lives by biking on Walden through Cheektowaga, I got to my destination in exactly 45 minutes. After photographing the big boy, I decided, because of where I was, it would be a good opportunity to go see some of the abandoned West Shore rail line near the airport. Why? I've been involved in some rail planning recently, and this line is often discussed as a potential route for a future metro rail extension to the airport. To get there meant biking on Dick Road, which would use up another one of my cyclist 9 lives, but it was a nice day, so I headed north. Just after biking by a Mega Wegmans, isn't there always a Mega Wegmans? I saw this sign in front of an apartment building, and it's the one I described at the front of the story. It's on a street post, and it says, hand printed, it says, "You matter, thank you, exclamation point. You are loved," and below it is a heart and the word truth with an arrow pointing up to the loved. At first I took note of it and kept going, intent on my mission, but something made me turn back and grab a picture of it. What was that something? The sign seemed to speak simply but directly to something I've been missing a lot lately. People, especially on social media, being down on themselves. While stress and the distress of political, economic, and social upheaval has affected and afflicted everyone, I'm seeing a trend among some of even questioning their value. It's especially disconcerting to see that happening with people who I know to be very capable, intelligent, talented, and have an awful lot going for them. People sometimes preface their remarks with, "I don't know who needs to hear this," but I did need to know some people who needed to hear this. So I turned around, went back, parked my bike, sat on the grass to get a good angle, took a picture of the sign, and tweeted it out with the message, "Don't make me tap the sign again." Again, the sign says, "You matter, thank you, exclamation point, you are loved." I posted this on Twitter and also Blue Sky, where I find I actually get far more engagement these days. And sure enough, I got no response on Twitter, but on Blue Sky, I got an almost immediate reply. "Nope, you gotta keep tapping, sorry." Someone who says that is exactly the kind of person who needs the message, right? So I decided to keep tapping, sharing the picture of the sign occasionally, which I did this week. But this time I got a completely unexpected response. One of my tweets, Jeff, replied, "I know the person who put this sign up. He died at that apartment complex last month. It warms my heart that he is still uplifting others to this day." Wow, chills. I asked about the sign maker and Jeff told me this. Yes, he died in his apartment June 3rd. Great friend from high school. Had his demons, but he spent a lot of time the last few years giving back. I saw this and didn't realize he put it up until a mutual friend pointed out that it was his handiwork. He was living in that complex at the time. Chills again. The person who put the sign up died exactly a week before I happened to bike by and see it. The apartment complex or someone mowing the lawn could have taken down the sign, but didn't. Personally, I hope they leave it there until it falls apart. Jeff also shared a link to the sign maker's tribute page, from which I learned his name, Jeremy James O'Brien from Depew. As for Jeremy's message, I hope that sign stays in place for a long time. But the message also needs to be shared in other places. I'd buy one of those signs and put it in my yard if they were available. That message would also look good on a billboard, don't you think? And I'll keep sharing Jeremy's sign and message on social media, because Jeremy James O'Brien, who mattered to a lot of people, even those who never knew him, wanted you to know that you matter, especially in a place where there is no more than a degree or two of separation between any of us. You matter to so many people, and your life touches so many people, even people you may not know. And don't you forget it. You matter, thank you, you are loved. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from Buffalo Rising on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. In the City column, here's a story titled, Don't Let the Neighbors Hear. I recently learned about a relatively new project that helps to put Buffalo into perspective. I learned about the podcast video series from a friend of a friend by the name of Jared, who lives in New York City but spends a good amount of time visiting Buffalo. Jared and his roommate Paige, who is also from Buffalo, decided that it was time to talk about life in and out of Buffalo in off-the-cuff ways that might shed some light on a variety of topics that we can all relate to. They offer a different vantage point on Buffalo, while touching upon subjects such as dating, how to be a cool mom, and how to keep Buffalo a secret or not. After watching their YouTube video, I Keep Buffalo a Secret, I decided that I want to share their project with readers. The series, called Don't Let the Neighbors Hear on Linktree, is entertaining, insightful, and refreshing. It's produced by two roommates who decided to take their amusing banter public. What are your full names? Paige Hapeman and Jared Gilbert. Where are you both from? Buffalo, New York. Jared grew up in Elma and Paige grew up in East Aurora. How did you meet? We went to high school together. We went to Iroquois High and met in student government Paige's freshman year, and which was Jared's sophomore year. It's no surprise the girl that won Most Outstanding and the guy that won Class Clown in high school have the new hottest pod in town. You're roommates. How long have you lived together? Yes, we have lived together on the Upper East Side for the past 5 years. Whose idea was Don't Let the Neighbors Hear? Both of ours. We love to host fun gatherings with our friends and people that are always getting a kick out of our banter, so we thought, maybe we should start a podcast together about 2 years ago. In March, we finally put it on its feet. Why the name? We have way too much fun in our tiny little New York City walk-up apartment, and many times have said, oh boy, what would the neighbors think if they heard that? Or, I hope the neighbors didn't hear that. So we were brainstorming how we could incorporate this idea into a name, and landed on, Don't Let the Neighbors Hear. We want to spill the stories that are only meant for our eavesdroppers' ears. Is this an extension of your conversations that you were already having at home? Absolutely. How we were doing our episodes is very much a reflection of how we chit-chat when no one's watching. Is this spontaneous or mapped out? We will have the topic and name for each episode planned out with a loose idea of how we'd like the episode to flow prior to recording. Once we hit record, anything can happen. How do you come up with the themes for the episodes? Each episode is framed as Don't Let the Neighbors Hear how to fill in the blank. So before we launched the show, we had a brainstorming session, thinking through all the stories we've heard in the walls of our apartment over the years and the experiences we've had together that we wouldn't want the neighbors to hear, but the eavesdroppers must already know. As the weeks go on, we were also thinking about topics that we have strong feelings about, that we know may get the eavesdroppers talking. Does this come naturally to both of you? You tell us, eavesdropper. It seems like you're having a lot of fun. How much editing goes into each episode? We are having a blast. Each episode requires approximately 4 hours of editing, split between editing the episode itself and cutting reels to be posted on social media platforms. Is this a podcast and video production? You bet, we have both audio and video components for our show. What is the crux of the show? The crux of Don't Let the Neighbors Hear is that every conversation feels like you're overhearing something you probably shouldn't. We take everyday topics like dating, friendships, pop culture, travel, growing up, and the awkward realities of being millennials, Gen Z, etc. And we approach them with radical honesty, humor, and the kind of stories most people only tell behind closed doors. Whether we're interviewing guests, exposing our own questionable life choices, or debating topics that divide the group chat, we create the feeling of sitting outside apartment 5R with your ear to the door for new listeners, or we bring a guest into our apartment with us. It's part comedy, part storytelling, and part confession booth. How many episodes have there been? As of August 1st, 2026, we have 20 episodes out so far. What have you learned from the exercise? Oh gosh, so many things. We have learned so much about technology and how to actually produce a podcast. We've learned that people love a topic that makes them feel like they're part of the conversation, and that consistency is really key. How has the response been? The response has been incredible. We are growing at a pace we are really happy with, and it's so fun to see that people have been able to interact with what we're producing. We've even started to attract some haters. You know what that means. You can listen to this podcast on YouTube, Linktree, or Instagram. And again, the name of that podcast is Don't Let the Neighbors Hear. Here's a story under the subtitle Urbanism: Placemaking Projects in Downtown and at Waterfront. Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, in partnership with the City of Buffalo, Buffalo Place, and funding partners from the M&T Charitable Foundation, have officially unveiled a series of placemaking projects downtown and along the waterfront. The placemaking projects include painted crosswalks, street furniture, planters, and wayfinding. In recent months, BUDC, its consultant team MIG Inc., Highland Planning, and Lou Engineers, and partners at the City of Buffalo have engaged local stakeholders, businesses, and the public to come up with some key urbanist installations that are designed to make Buffalo more walkable and more enjoyable. BUDC's placemaking project involves 3 placemaking installations. First, Roosevelt Plaza, closing and painting Genesee Street between Main and Huron Streets to allow for expanded seating and programming. Also new lighting, colorful furniture, and planters. At Commercial Street and Marine Drive, near the Explorer Moore Children's Museum, the project involves enhancing crosswalks and bicycle lanes, adding colorful Jersey barriers and intersection street mural. At Michigan Street near Broadway, within the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, there will be traffic calming elements, colorful crossing enhancements, plantings, and sidewalk painting. The project will include restoration of the iconic African American Heritage Corridor archway. This innovative community-driven initiative between BUDC, the City of Buffalo, Buffalo Place, area small businesses, partners at the M&T Charitable Foundation, and a whole host of incredible local volunteers, looks to improve the quality of downtown's public realm in a creative and highly visible way through placemaking that elevates downtown Buffalo, said Brandy Merriweather, BUDC president. A vibrant downtown does not happen by accident. We have to create public spaces where people want to walk, to gather, to spend time, and support local businesses, Mayor Sean Ryan said. These projects, along with recent placemaking work in Niagara Square, show how thoughtful improvements and creativity to public spaces can bring new energy to downtown. I want to thank BUDC, Buffalo Place, the M&T Charitable Foundation, and all the businesses, volunteers, and community members who worked with the city to bring these projects to life. Projects like this demonstrate how thoughtful investments and strong partnerships can transform public spaces and connect communities, said Don Ellick, Senior Vice President, M&T Charitable Foundation Regional Manager, M&T Bank. M&T Bank is proud to support this effort, and we're grateful to our employee volunteers who contributed their time to help make this project a reality. Together, we're helping create a more welcoming and vibrant downtown. On behalf of the Buffalo Place Board of Directors, we are thrilled with the outcome this installation has had in Roosevelt Plaza. Stakeholders, employees, and residents are actively engaging with the freedom of movement and the aesthetics of the space. The additional seating choices have led to employees and visitors alike enjoying their lunches together. We all thank BUDC, its project partners at the City of Buffalo, the consultant team, and all of the volunteers for giving this space new life, said Steve Carmina, chairman of the Buffalo Place Board of Directors. We were thrilled to be a part of this project, working with the BUDC team throughout the process. The project provided much-needed color and vibrancy to the crosswalk, which allowed for increased safety and awareness for the thousands of families visiting Canalside. These types of collaborations show the strength and power of what can be accomplished when we work together, said Michelle Urbanchik, Explorer Moore President and CEO. On behalf of the Heritage Corridor and its colorful anchors, I would like to thank Brandy Merriweather and her dynamic team at BUDC in selecting us to be a part of such an exciting opportunity. As most in our community know, our Heritage Corridor and anchors are in the midst of significant construction projects to renovate or expand our historic sites. Despite the construction, BUDC's placemaking project offers a temporary but impactful solution to beautify the areas around this construction, to allow our community to still enjoy our sites and each other, said Terry Alford, Executive Director of the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor Commission. BUDC is also looking to get additional feedback on their placemaking efforts through their survey, which is available at Buffalo Intersection Redesign. Here's some word about a few upcoming events. The first is the Free Silo Stair Climb. More often than not, we simply stare at the silos in awe. It's not that often that we venture inside, although it is known to happen. When we do make our way into a silo, it's usually to observe an art installation or to listen to some poetry or live music. Rarely do we get a chance to climb our way to the top of one of these concrete towers. But that's what Buffalo River Works is now offering. A chance to climb 162 steps to the top of one of the city's towering landmarks. Climb 162 steps through one of the historic Buffalo River Works silos and take in panoramic views of the Buffalo waterfront and skyline from above. Whether you're looking for a fun weekend activity, a great workout, or the perfect photo opportunity, the Silo Stair Climb offers an unforgettable perspective of the city, says Buffalo River Works. The tour is for ages 9 and up. They are 1-hour guided tours. They'll be occurring August through September 2026. Reservations are required, although admission is free thanks to Independent Health. For more information, dates and times, and to make reservations, you can visit buffaloriverworks.com/silo-stair-climb. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from Buffalo Rising. We read from Buffalo Rising on Fridays at 8:30 a.m. Your reader has been Jim Michaely. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service with broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga. Radio readings are broadcast 24 hours a day, every day, to area people who are blind or have a print disability. This year, our agency marks almost 40 years on the air with more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those without sight. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service website is nfradioreading.org. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Good morning. Welcome to another broadcast day on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. Radio Reading volunteers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books to area blind and print handicapped persons who are provided reading radios. As always, please stay with us. Our Reading the Buffalo News is going to be coming up in just a second. And feel free to contact us with those comments, suggestions, or questions you may have.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or